Hi friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelly and I am going to be wrapping up everything I read at the last half of the month of April. I'm going to get started with the classics I read today. The first one is in The Enchanted April by Elizabeth de Armin, and I read this with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia. It was a fun buddy read. We got to really chat a lot and get to know each other better and talk about some homeschooling in there too. So thanks for reading this with me, Tiffany. I just really have lots of opinions, some of them good, some of them not so good about this book. I loved the nature discussion in the book. I thought it was so beautifully done. She's got a beautiful writing style, and I really enjoyed the humor that popped through the book. I did not particularly care for the women in the story. There are two women who start off. One is named Mrs. Wilkins, and she is a very self-centered person, very inwardly focused, and she has a husband who is also very inwardly focused and does not show her any affection. I don't think Mrs. Wilkins is showing him that much affection either. She kind of disdains him a bit, and he thinks that she's not the best. And then there's Mrs. Arbuthnot, and she is not really that self-focused, but she is a little bit, because she's pursued as like doing very religious things, but it's not out of the love of her heart. She's trying to kind of earn some favor with God because she is accepting money from her husband, because this is 1922. What do you do for money when you're a woman back then? And he writes some books about people's mistresses, and she does not like that and doesn't think that's acceptable, and she thinks that God is going to be, judging that. So she does everything she can to work for the poor in the church. So Mrs. Wilkins and Mrs. Arbuthnot don't know each other very well, but Mrs. Wilkins kind of approaches her and says, hey, we should go on vacation together to Italy. There's this castle we can rent. It's going to be lovely. And somehow they end up getting this pulled off, but they know they need some help financially. So one very cranky old lady joins them, and a very snooty lady named Lady Carolyn. The snooty old lady is a very angry, cranky old lady. His name is Mrs. Fisher. They do improve as the story goes on. One of the main themes of the story, like there's a quote, and I know Tiffany liked this quote too: beauty made you love, love made you beautiful. So it's like the scenery and the environment they're in softens their heart, especially at first. Mrs. Wilkins. And so she starts actually having a desire for her husband again. This is a month. They're supposed to be like gone the whole month of April. They're not even like thinking they're going to miss their husbands at all. Because they're in a very loveless, no affection marriages. The men have kind of abandoned that part of the marriage, and the other lady that joins, Lady Carolyn, that's a snooty lady, she has no interest in love. She is in her late 20s. And then there's Mrs. Fisher, who wants to look at the good parts of her younger years and just be cranky about everything that's happening in her life now. So, but they do improve with the environment, and Lady Wilkins has a desire for her husband. There is a lot of reconciliation with relationships by the end, but my problem with it is that I don't feel like in the case of the men, it is actually a love for their partners that change them. And there's one like pairing up that happens that it's just like, this isn't love, this is infatuation. But I feel like the women like that are married, their love that they feel for their husbands is like a true, genuine, I will stand by you love. I feel like the men is kind of a misogynistic, it's like they're behaving like I want them to behave. I love them now. So I could be I know Tiffany kind of felt that way a little bit too. I don't want to talk about her video because it's not her video, but I'm very curious if any of you felt that way. There was a part in the ending that it was a surprise I absolutely loved. I didn't completely like the way the character behaved, but I liked the way she put a little switch on there for us, and I really enjoyed that a lot. So yes, Elizabeth de Armin's writing is so gorgeous, so many funny scenes, but I just didn't get behind the characters, and I thought some of the messages were not the best. All right, now moving on to East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I don't even know what to say about this book right now. I mean, at first I thought when I started reading, I was like, I'm not gonna like this very much. You guys, I absolutely loved it. I loved it. There are so many trigger warnings, though. Guys, you've got to check out the warnings in case there's something that's going to be hard for you. I almost put it down a couple times because I know we're seeing through the lens of a totally different time, but there were some N words for African Americans. There were some CH words for some Chinese people. And the Lord was talked about just in a disrespectful manner sometimes. It's part of what the characters are going through in the story, though. So, East of Eden, we have a really interesting family in the Slayton Valley named the Hamiltons, and a lot of the story follows them. But the main family are the Trasks, and we have Adam Trask, and he is the son of a man who, and so we're going from the Civil War through World War I in this span of the story. So, Adam came from a man who was very hard on him. He wasn't hard on his brother, though, but he was actually hard on Adam because he loved him more. And Adam kind of escapes from his home life, not in the way he wants, by going off to war. And he ends up going eventually away from his family to the Salinas Valley, and he takes a wife that he has rescued with him. Before we even get to that, we know that Adam's brother has very complex feelings towards Adam. He really loves him, but he also hates him a little bit too and can be very abusive. So Adam kind of wants to get away from the farm. He doesn't have good memories of growing up where he did, so he moves to Salinas Valley in California with this wife who is in fact a sociopath. She is bat, you know what, crazy. And so they go off, and they end up having twins, and Kathy ends up doing some things that I don't approve of as a good Christian girl. And but John Steinbeck with his themes had me really hooked in this book. We have good versus evil. We have the sins of the father, if you don't get them in check, can carry on to the next generation. They learn from the father. Sibling rivalry. The twins that Adam and his sociopath wife, Kathy, have. There's a little bit of a Cain and Abel feel, just like there was with Adam and his brother. And one of the twins, though, he's kind of labeled like the bad one, and he's the one that wants to do good. He wants to do good so bad. And so another theme of this book is Tim Shell, which is man can choose to do right or wrong. You have the choice to follow good or you can follow evil. So I don't know if the author, John Steinbeck, was a Christian or believed like I do about what makes good, what makes evil, but I really appreciated the themes of this book, that you can choose whether you're going to do good or evil. I loved it. Tread with caution, though. All right, so let's get to some less serious books. I read some to try to finish some series I got going on. I read Finale by Stephanie Garber, which was the last book in the Caraval series. I wasn't so sure how I felt about the first two books. I really enjoyed the world building. This is a carnival game-ish type world. There was two sisters. They kind of irritated me, to be honest with you. But I did like the world building, and I think Stephanie Garber is a beautiful writer, and they didn't annoy me in this book. I don't know if I just gotten used to them, and I didn't really enjoy the romantic relationships I did in this book, so it went pretty well. So if you like YA fantasy, I think it's a pretty good one. I would recommend it. That dealt with kind of themes of kind of, do you really love someone, or is this just an attraction, and that just an attraction isn't going to be enough. So I liked that part of it. So I read A Heart and Fierce and Broken. This is the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely. What is it with these YA novel names? So anyway, it's by Brigid Kemmerer. So this is kind of a Beauty and the Beast-ish retelling. We have, you know, a girl that was brought in from another world in the last book, and, you know, she kind of is there to save the Beast-ish character. But you also have his main guard in the story, and so we are left with, like, is this going to be a love triangle? And I was afraid that was going to be a main emphasis of this book. And it wasn't. We got to see the guard a lot of the time, and we got to see his story. And I can't tell you too much without ruining it, but I really like the guard a lot, and I enjoyed this book more than the first one. So if you want a Beauty and the Beast retelling that's not Alcatraz, I would recommend trying this out. All right, so next I read Cinderella's Shoes, and this is by, I will put it in the description box, I'm forgetting the author's name. With my daughter, we read Cinderella's Dress by the same author. It's kind of a World War II post-era book, and so it deals with some ideas that Cinderella was Polish, and that her step-siblings are still trying to get her dress and shoes that have magical properties. And it's a cute read. It does do one of my pet peeves where a main character kind of makes the same mistakes over and over again. It's a very innocent book, very appropriate for any teen or even, I'd say, middle schooler to read. I really enjoyed it. And then the next one I read, so that one I read with my daughter, and we also finished this one this month. This is in the Book Scavenger series, the Alcatraz Escape, and this is a series that's all about kids that absolutely love books and love puzzles and scavenger hunts to find books. So in this book, the main kids, the two best friends, a boy and a girl who are in middle school, go to Alcatraz Island to try to solve a puzzle in the Book Scavenger world. Her older brothers are with her. I love that it deals with brother-sister relationships too. I think this is a cute, clean, sweet mystery series for kids. I definitely recommend it. And the last one, I'm just going to let you know, I'm not going to go into detail in case anyone has any trouble hearing about this topic. I was asked to read a book called Our Hope for Isabel, and this is a book that a husband and a wife named Taylor and Elizabeth Bloomquist wrote after they lost their infant daughter. I have not personally gone through that loss, but they were doing it from a Christian perspective. Found me on Instagram and asked if I would read it. I thought it was beautiful the way they dealt with how a husband deals with grief, and also how a couple together deals with grief. A lot of books that are written deal with the mother, I think. So I thought they did a beautiful job. I hope you never need it, but if you do, Our Hope for Isabel by Taylor and Elizabeth Bloomquist. All right, thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate it. I hope you read a lot. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.